I'd hazard a guess you were not expecting this driver's name on the Daytona 500 entry list. So we're going to be talking about that and much more in the world of racing right now. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more motorsport content. Got a lot more stuff coming over the next days, weeks, months, really just the entire year. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go down there and let me know what you think. And it's a good way to let YouTube know that you want to see more of my content. So, got a couple of things to update from yesterday. If you didn't know already, yesterday was a big news day. Not only did Kevin Harvick announce his retirement, but Kyle Larson announced that he was going to race in the Indy 500, not this year, but in 2024. And there were a few more things that I feel are notable to talk about that broke yesterday that kind of got buried in the news cycle. The first thing is that Juncos Hollinger Racing in the IndyCar series has its second driver. It's Agustin Canapino, who is a name that you've probably never heard before if you are in the United States or even in Europe. But this guy is a very popular and successful touring car driver from Argentina. He's done some testing, or at least demonstration runs, in the Juncos Hollinger car down in Argentina. Of course, Juncos Racing. Ricardo Juncos is Argentinian himself, so he obviously has a lot of deep roots there. And Agustin was his driver choice, and it seems, or would seem, that they've sold some sponsorship from their little exhibition that they've done down there. But Augustin's a complete unknown. And so you start thinking, well, is he going to be like a Scott McLaughlin? Maybe. He's a touring car driver, similar skills, similar success. Let's see if it translates. This is definitely a wild card entry for the full season in IndyCar, pairing with Callum Ilott at Juncos. The Indy NXT prize fund has been restructured after major criticism over last year's prizes that have ultimately resulted in what appears to be the Indy Lights champion Linus Lundqvist without a ride for the 2023 IndyCar series. Now, the good news is that the prize money has been increased to $800,500, and the driver who wins the championship will also be given a test at the IMS Road Course and Texas Motor Speedway before they are guaranteed to race in the Indianapolis 500 and one additional race the next season. Now, it's very unfortunate that it appears Linus Lundqvist is really going to get screwed by all of this. The criticism absolutely justified, but I've got to give a shout out to Penske Entertainment and the Indy NXT series for at least seemingly addressing the problem right now, and hopefully it does fix it. Hopefully the Indy Lights champion for 2023 will have an opportunity to race in IndyCar in 2024, because the ladder system has been one of IndyCar's great successes over the last decade. They've gotten so many young, talented drivers into the series that it's really raised the competition level, and I think that's important to continue. Kyle Larson has spoken out himself on his Indy 500 attempt, and he said some very interesting things, which I'm going to play right now, and then I'm going to talk about it.
What's up? Indy 500 2024 for McLaren and HendrickCars.com. Huge thank you to everybody involved. This has been a dream of mine and my family's for a very long time. Look forward to next May, and look forward to getting a lot of testing in and being as ready as possible for the biggest race of my life.
Only sign in the game, we the new Lucian Grange, bring on the reins.
So there were two things that stood out to me in that little statement from Kyle Larson uploaded to his Twitter account yesterday evening. The first thing is a confirmation of something that I kind of figured we would have confirmed pretty shortly, and indeed Kyle Larson has confirmed it, which is the fact that they are planning on doing a lot of testing, which is very interesting to me because generally speaking in IndyCar, testing is extremely limited. Now, maybe a little bit increased next year because as far as I'm aware right now, not only are the hybrids coming in to pair with the current engines, but to house that hybrid system, I'm pretty sure they're messing with the bodywork to a certain extent. So the teams are probably going to spend a lot more time on the track in next season's off season than they have been in the previous couple of years, because testing will actually be necessary once again to work the kinks out from the new technology. So I think that's a great opportunity for Kyle Larson. As we've seen in the past, we've seen that Indy 500 drivers who are coming into their first 500, especially from a different form of motorsport, have been granted additional time to complete their rookie test. We saw Jimmy Johnson do it in October of 2021 before he attempted the 500 in 2022. We saw Kurt Busch do it all the way back in 2013 in May, and then, of course, came back a year later to race the Indy 500 in 2014. I also wonder if and when there would be an opportunity to put Kyle Larson in an oval IndyCar race before the Indy 500 in 2024. I think that's unlikely. I think it's really just going to come down to pounding the pavement at places like Texas Motor Speedway and Homestead and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway within whatever rules that IndyCar allows them to test. The other thing that I think is very interesting, and just kind of a thought process with Kyle Larson and why he's chosen to do the Indianapolis 500, and kind of debunking some of the people who said that maybe Kyle Larson doesn't care all that much about actually running the Indianapolis 500. Not only did he say it was very important to his family, but he said at the very end of it, it will be the biggest race of his life. I think those are very strong words from a driver who's won the Knoxville Nationals, won the Chili Bowl, won the NASCAR Cup Series championship. Those are not insignificant races to win, and yet Kyle Larson, looking at the Indianapolis 500 as the big prize that it is, I think that's just great. And I said it on Twitter yesterday, I think Zach Brown is absolutely pulling his weight in the IndyCar series right now. Think about all the things that Arrow McLaren has done promotional-wise for the IndyCar series since they started their flirtation in 2017. Think about where the series would be without them causing all of this ruckus and stirring the pot every now and then, and bringing drivers like Fernando Alonso, Juan Pablo Montoya, and Kyle Larson back into the fold. I mean, I think this is great. It's great for the sport, and big shout out to those over at that team for making things like this happen. Speaking of things happening, 2311 Racing teased a third Daytona 500 entry on Twitter earlier today, and it didn't take long for Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic to break the story that the driver of this car will be none other than Travis Pastrana. Now, Pastrana is no stranger to NASCAR. He had 47 starts between the Xfinity and Truck Series between the 2011 season and 2020, though didn't have too much success, only one pole position and 4 top 10s. All 4 of those top 10s coming in the 2013 Xfinity Series season, but importantly, especially for the Daytona 500, one of those top 10s came during the Xfinity race at Daytona in February. Now, how did this deal happen? Well, we don't know details yet, though those will be public when it's announced publicly next week. But Red Bull recently dumped support of Travis Pastrana at the end of 2022, and familiar sponsor to NASCAR, Black Rifle Coffee, has stepped in its place and is likely, though unconfirmed as of right now, the supporter of the effort. Expansion of the 2311 side is also very interesting from a Toyota NASCAR standpoint. With Joe Gibbs Racing seemingly on shaky and uncertain ground, I think it's very notable that 2311 has expanded its footprint in NASCAR. This also gives us at least 40 cars for the 2023 Daytona 500. So I think we can cross our fingers at this point and maybe not hold our breath yet, but I think there's a good chance there'll be some exciting dual action to come in February. So I think Travis Pastrana is definitely a left field choice. I think my friend Drew on Twitter said it's out of the ballpark. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of people thought it was Carl Edwards right off the bat. I almost think Carl Edwards would be more likely to get this high level of a cup ride than Travis Pastrana. I mean, and you think about the 2311 cars, especially in the hands of Bubba Wallace, those things are really, really quick at the super speedways. So this is not like an effort that I think is a field filler. I think they genuinely think they've got a competitive package here. And what's really crazy about the open cars this year is that you've got Jimmy Johnson will be attempting to qualify and Travis Pastrana who will be attempting to qualify because they don't have charters. This is going to be the kind of race that Pastrana, you would want him to race in. Like, this is the one you would make. This will make a lot of splash, I think. I think it already is making quite a splash. It's interesting to see an extreme sports star, though he has a lot of NASCAR experience, make his Cup Series debut on the biggest stage. I think he'll probably time his way into the Daytona 500, provided that the Toyota bodywork is not like a horrible, draggy mess. I think that's pretty much a given. But if he has to race his way in, Katie, bar the door, because it could be very exciting whether or not he makes it in or gets caught up in a crash trying to do so. 2311 expansion. I think that's the other really key part of this whole thing is you look at Joe Gibbs Racing, and I begin to wonder when you start talking about, it almost seems like an open secret at this point that FedEx is going to leave that team at the end of next year. Obviously, from a managerial standpoint, the unfortunate, untimely death of Coy Gibbs has to have thrown that team into some sort of turmoil, at least in terms of a succession plan. Martin Truex Jr. is probably on shaky ground. How much longer is he going to stay around? And then even if he leaves, will Bass Pro Shops stay with the team? If they don't, then where are you? So 2311 could very well become not only the leading Toyota team, maybe they'll become the only Toyota team, as crazy as that is to suggest right now. I think there's a scenario where maybe they're positioning themselves to expand and really take over the mantle, so to speak. So I think this is a bigger story than a lot of people maybe are thinking of right now. Looking far down the line, I think this could be a lot bigger. And I wonder too, past the Daytona 500, how many more races does 2311 enter a third car? Who are the drivers then? I think there could be a lot of exciting news to come. Let's see. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content, and I'll see you in the next